So today is the time of year for many celebrations throughout the month of December. One of the big things this year has been the debate on Facebook on if you say Happy Holidays or you say Merry Christmas. And some people get caught up in that. When we here at CCL embrace all of the above. So we know that we can say any of those things and it's A-okay, whatever it fits for you. We are blessed to live in such a diverse area. And it's so different to be away from a place that celebrates the diversity that we celebrate here. Is the heat working now, everybody? Do we need to turn it down a little bit? We are blessed here to have CCL and UCM. Jan is like, no, I'm just taking my coat off. Just warm. Here we're allowed to celebrate multiple holidays. And we're so blessed to have that and honor one another peacefully and come in community. When we see the world striving so much to find its own balance of respect between communities, respect between religious beliefs, respecting one another, to find a common ground. And of course right now, I really want us to hold our Muslim friends in your hearts, and that people can see beyond their ethnicity. One of the subjects that was brought up was there aren't just terrorists today, there have been terrorists many, many thousands of years as long as humans have existed. And somebody posted Jim Jones, which was a long time ago, and so people of my kids' generation had to say, who is that? And he was responsible for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of deaths. But nobody persecuted Christians because of his individual actions. And it's a good reminder for just because individuals are from one, and I know you all don't think that, but it's important and it's in the minds and the forefront of people at this time to be judgmental about a group based on the individual acts of a few. So I hope that we remember our brother and sisterhood. And it's a little hard not to, and even being out in public, it's like you kind of do have a little bit of a different notice about people dressed in headdress, or it does make you, it makes it hard it's not that you're being judgmental, it's just that you're trying to be aware of your surroundings a little more. So I just hold it in our hearts that we offer brotherhood to these people because they're frightened. They're frightened. So I think saying hello to people and speaking to people and smiling at people, as April's saying.
Is that thunder?
No, it's airplane.
That's an airplane.
An airplane. That's air thunder. So here at CCL this afternoon we'll be setting up a traditional manger scene honoring the birth of our Christ the Master. We set up a Native American altar honoring our indigenous people and their roots in our country as well as in the world. We set up a Kwanzaa altar to celebrate the traditions of African American families. And we set up an altar for our Druid and Celtic traditions. And of course we set up a holiday tree and we fill it with ornaments honoring all of the traditions. So, and the children have made wonderful things for Hanukkah and all of the different traditions. So we put that up as, it really is a tree of brother and sisterhood, that we can bring everyone's beliefs to be honored. Being a spiritualist church, I think that we need a reminder that we do honor many traditions here. And it's important to remember that because every tradition is not who you honor, it's just really important to honor the traditions for others. As we always resonate with one or more, it's just a respectful reminder, and it's this time of the year when we do honor and celebrate Christmas. I've heard some people say, well, this isn't supposed to be a Christian church, but we are, and even more. So for those of you who that doesn't resonate with you, bless it just the same. Our dear Virginia Essene, who's been busy this week, loving her name being said a dozen times at Light of Light.
Yes.
And she honored us many occasions in channeling Christ the Master's messages. And his messages were for everyone collectively, not just a few. Our UCM history is deeply steeped in the messages of Christ and his life, including his birth that we honor on December 25th. Even though the conclusions of many say that based on the descriptions, he was born in the summer, not the winter, but we have to celebrate with the other holidays, so.
Might have been a Gemini.
That's right. And for Virginia, I would appreciate if you all stated, we are what?
We are the light of the world.
That's right. Let's say it one more time.
We are the light of the world.
And that really was the message that Christ brought us. And every one of you is a light in the world. And we are it. We are the Christ consciousness to bring about change, no matter where you come from. It's a time that the world needs more loving and understanding and respect for all people. World peace begins right here in this room with one another, and where we take it into our homes and our workplaces and out and about. And we all have our little light bulbs on, and I know each and every one of you has been approached in the grocery store and people see your light and feel your light and reach for your light. And sometimes you leave the grocery store knowing way more about a person than you ever intended on, but they saw you as a beacon of light and a safe place in the world. And so we're kind of having a potpourri today with Dottie missing. We're going to pull on a few different places. So we're going to start with Reverend Becca Thompson.
Good morning, Becca.
And thank you, Jan has to leave for other duties.
Love you, babe.
Thank you for coming. Bye.
Be safe out there.
Thank you.
Yes.
Namaste.
Namaste.
The God in me welcomes the God in you, and in this place we are one. So my tradition is deeply held in Christmas. From my forefathers to my grandparents to my parents, raising me in the tradition of the holiday spirit. And Christmas was important to me through my family's heritage. My mom decorated every nook and cranny. There wasn't a place in the household that didn't have some reminder of a blended concept of Santa Claus and Jesus. When I was little, I really thought they were both. I thought Jesus really made it, and he grew old and had a white beard, and I had to learn that wasn't quite right. But I loved Christmas, and I loved it so much. Every holiday in the beginning of Thanksgiving, that percolation started to happen, and that joy started to just come from the heart. And you would anticipate the decorations and the holiday baking and being with family and being with friends. And through that joy and that tradition, I taught my children. And they do Christmas land as well. And then I have grandchildren, a grandson. And one of the holiday traditions in my family is to cut a Christmas tree down. I've been doing it since I was 5 years old. I haven't missed a year. My folks came up until last year, and they just got too old to do the hills and the valleys and pick out that perfect Christmas tree. So we honored them last year by getting one for them. And this year is the first one that they have this beautiful fake Christmas tree with lights, and I told my mom, it's okay, it's the same but different. So that's the backdrop of the story that I'm about to tell. Because this year I've come to really testify. And testify that this year has been a difficult one for me. And I dedicate this to Dr. Eileen and Sean and Donna and April and Donna and Anne and this entire community, Laura, who's helped me as I work through something so personal. And when I thought about, Kat helped me, Carolyn helped me, I thought about this year. So, I'm testifying what happened. I was raised as a who, but I lost my who-ness. Every who in Whoville liked Christmas a lot, but the Grinch who lived just north of Whoville did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why, no one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. When you have a tight heart, it's very hard to move into your heritage, your giving. And things start to really bug you, like changing on the radio. They would change Christmas carols. It's like, what happened to the original? The original was just fun and just fine. But they changed the words to either sell something or make a point. And I could feel my heart just get squishy. But I was moving into the Grinch. And his heart was too tight. Whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve hating the Who's, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm, lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled, his grinchy fingers nervously drumming, I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake up bright and early, they'd rush for their toys. And then, oh, the noise and the noise and the noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise. Then the Who's, young and old, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they would feast, feast, feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beef. So I invite you to consider what part triggered for you. The noise, the shopping, the activity, that having to buy that perfect present, or not being able to buy that perfect present. Whatever is happening in that background, and the heart restricts, and you close down. Is it bothering you for all the activities, coming out to the grocery store and you can't find a spot, and all you wanted was a couple of things? Do you have a grinchy heart then? Did you restrict? Donna was talking about blocking the reach of another. That whatever your tradition was is more important than the other. Where did the grinchy heart come in? I had to explore that for myself as well. For I got to a point where I was not tall. It goes on. Which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They would stand hand in hand, and those Who's would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, sing, sing. And the more the Grinch thought of the Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming, but how? Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat. And he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. And he chuckled and he clucked. What a great Grinchy trick. With his coat and his hat, I looked just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer, the Grinch looked around. But since reindeers are scarce, there were none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max, then he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ram's-shackled sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, giddy up, and the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town. All the windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. Can you imagine, in this time and this season, dreaming sweet dreams without care? When he came to the first little house on the square, this is a stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed. And he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, so could the Grinch. And he got stuck only once for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue. Where the little whose stockings were hung in a row, these stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant. Around the whole room he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn and drums. And he stuffed them in a bag. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Then he slunk to the icebox. Who took the who's feast? He took the who pudding. He took the roast beast. And he cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took the last can of who hash. And he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, he grinned, the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. And he turned around fast and he saw a small who. Little Cindy Lou who was no more than 2. And the Grinch had been caught by the tiny Who daughter, who got out of the bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why? But you know the old Grinch who was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie and he thought it up quick. So, in this time, how many lies do we tell ourselves? How many lies do we tell in order to get out of something we don't want to do? How many lies are there in our perception of what's happening to perhaps the sacredness within? Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all holy times being honored. And yet when we see and judge the commercialism, is that what's happening to the Grinchy Grinch heart? Can we feel our restriction? Can we feel ourselves not holding on to what is sacred? And the innocence and the coo of the dove. She knows no better. She's holding on to the tradition of what she's learned in those quick 2 years. This is a time of sacredness, a time of Christmas. And there is that Grinchy heart acting out and telling a lie. And it's interesting because the lie he conceives is for the child. But is that really where the lie lands? And it goes on. Why, my sweet little tot that thinks Santa Claus lied. There's a light on the tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear, and I'll fix it up there, and I'll bring it back here. And as Fib fooled the child, then he patted his head, and he got her a drink and sent her off to bed. And when Cindy Lou who went back with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was a log for their fire. Then he went to the chimney himself, the old liar. On the walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other whose houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other whose mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, all the who's still in bed, all the who's still a snooze when he packed up his sled. He packed it up with their presents, their ribbons, their wrappings. the tags and the tinsels, the trimmings and the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tippy top to dump it. Pooh, pooh, to the who's, he was grinchingly humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas tree is coming. They're just waking up. I just know what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the who's down in Whoville will all cry boo-hoo. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. He did not hear a sound rising over the snow. It started out low, then started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was. Merry, merry. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook what he saw with a shocking surprise. Every who down at Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. So the testifying that I'd like to do is that there was a moment of sharing of my Christmas tradition for me and another, and sharing the gifts from home to another, and parting with the things that mattered so much, that had come from the store, or had come from the gifts, or had come from somewhere even more. It came from the heart. And my reaching down to be able to share, I felt my heart open from this community's care, from the healing received as you held me this year. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas perhaps means a little bit more. And what happened then, well, in Whoville, they say, that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't quite feel so tight, he whizzed with the load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food and the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. Namaste. Thank you, Reverend Becca Thompson. Because that's what we do around here. Take care of one another, support one another. And so you kind of talked about that, and we're getting down to 11:20. So why don't we go ahead and do collection at this time. And our choir will come over to there. And it's on disc number 5 today. And as you're gathering out, you can read in your book, The Sacrament of Giving,
and giving to the ministry from which we receive our spiritual support and nurturing is an affirmation in consciousness of the truth that Spirit is the prospering power enriching every area of our lives.
All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me and blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me and blesses me abundantly. All I give comes back to me, blesses me abundantly.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. So Annie, do you want to conclude Hanukkah for us?
Sure.
Our candles burned out that Annie so beautifully, and they were all beautiful colors at the beginning of service.
So Beck spoke a little bit about, her traditions, her family traditions, and when I was growing up, we celebrated Hanukkah, but we celebrated it a little bit differently, in that my family would gather together the first night of Hanukkah, and we'd have a piñata, and we would have latkes, and we would have, lots of goodies and lots of great things. But really, I wanted to talk a little bit more about, what Hanukkah is about. And as I grew up, my mother married a Gentile, so you can imagine what that must have been like. So we actually created a holiday for ourselves, and that's what I love about this community, is that we have the holidays that are, it's a variety, because we created what was called Winter Festival. And we would get a tree, and we had Hanukkah decorations, we had Christmas decorations, we had peace signs, we had ankhs, we had all kinds of different types of things that represented joy and peace all around the world. Musical signs, musical notes. So I don't come from, on one side of my family is very, very, very traditional Jewish, and on my mother's side, where I was raised, was very reform and very different and very lax. But Hanukkah is an important holiday in some ways, and it's actually considered one of the least important holidays in the Jewish religion. But the reason why I see it as important is because the Jews were not allowed to worship. In so many, during this time period, when the Greeks were trying to close down their temple and they were trying to keep them from having their temple, they weren't allowed to study the Torah. They weren't allowed to do anything because they were in fear of being killed. So if you see the little tops that are there on the altar, the purple and the blue tops, they're called dreidels. And they created a game with dreidel. It has 4 Hebrew letters on them. And each of the Hebrew letters represented either you get nothing, you get half, you get all, and I forget what the other one is. I think you give away. And they used to play with raisins or any type of like dates, fruits, anything of that sort. But in reality, as they were sitting and doing this, and the Greeks and the enemies of the Jews thought that what they were doing was gambling. But at the time, what they were doing was discussing the Torah. And they had to do it in secret. They had to do it in hiding. And sometimes we feel like we have to hide who we are. Sometimes we feel as though we're
not allowed to be genuine, and we're not allowed to be who we truly are because we're afraid of that persecution. So our little bear over there, hi little bear, not the little bear crawling on the altar, but the little bear that's sitting on the altar, he's holding what's called guilt. And remember last week Dottie said we're going to have some Hanukkah guilt. It was not Hanukkah guilt, it's guilt. And guilt is what they do in modern times when they're using the dreidel. They play, they're little chocolate coins, wrapped in gold foil. So, and of course tonight is the 8th night of Hanukkah, and as you know, we celebrate Hanukkah as the miracle of lighting the lights, and that the miracle of when the Jews went into the temple and they were locked inside. There was enough oil for one night, and it lasted 8 full days and nights. And the people were able to reclaim. And what it is now, this time of year, and all the time, we have to reclaim ourselves and be our genuine selves. We have to reclaim who we are, be in our hearts. Let our souls speak. I'm really blessed because I work in a very challenging job, but we're international, and we have different cultures, and I'm multicultural. And although it's tiring being up late at night to talk to India and then early in the morning to talk to Ireland, it's a joy to get to know people and their traditions. So what is the gift that we give to ourselves? The gifts that we give to ourselves is to be genuine, to be kind, to be caring, to be loving. Because we are that pebble that goes outward. And by us walking that talk and being that talk, we are bringing about our own little part of world peace that we hope is being spread everywhere. So celebrate each and every day and call it whatever holiday you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. If someone says to me, Merry Christmas, I reply, Merry Christmas. If they say Happy Hanukkah, I reply, Happy Hanukkah. If they say Happy Kwanzaa, I reply, Happy Kwanzaa. It doesn't matter. It really is all one, because who are we at the very depth of who we truly are? Is we are love, and we are peace, and we are joy, and that's what the holidays are all about.
Thank you, Annie. That was wonderful. And Reverend Sean. Have to have more music, right?
Music, please.
While Sean's preparing, I'll say thank you to all the food fairies for bringing all the supplies and the things for the Envision, and continue to bring socks.
generations, Lord, and honor thee. Thy Son shall be Emmanuel, who sees foretold. Most highly favored lady, Gloria. The gentle Mary meekly bowed her head. To me be as it pleaseth God, she said. My soul shall laud and magnify his holy name. Most highly favored lady, Gloria. Of her the Christ Emmanuel was born in Bethlehem on a Christmas morn, and everyone around the world shall ever say, most highly favored lady, Gloria.
Thank you, Shauna. And if you're in need, if you'd like to remain within the circle as we circle up and close our service.